I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome to expansion of the war in the region. But I warn, if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire.
It seems to me, Major, talking to Major Mike Lyons, retired United States Army, that's a threat. It seems to me that that's Iran at the United Nations, a guy who could have been arrested on the spot. Never mind, should have never gotten the visa to get to the United States, just engaged the threat of the United States and Israel at the United Nations. How else is this taken?
Yeah, I've talked to folks over the weekend, former military, and I tell you, there's no question that we're losing patience with the Iranians, and maybe one day we'll elect a leader that feels the same way. In that, from what they do, from what they support, and how they sponsor terrorism, they're gonna push this thing to the point where we're gonna have to respond, and I think that's what's close to being made right now. The Israelis are already there, so they've declared war. They're already at the spot where I'm sure that if they find Iranian conspiracy, or they find any kind of a way that they're involved, that they'll attack. If the Iranians are dumb enough to attack U.S. forces in a larger scale, or whatever the case may be, especially on the sea. So, for example, I mean, the Iranian Navy could be at the bottom of the Persian Gulf in 48 hours if the United States and the Israelis wanted to be. This whole premise in Middle Eastern peace is based, again, on this lather, rinse, repeat of the terrorist attack. The Israelis respond disproportionately. The world puts pressure on the Israelis to stop. The terrorist groups regroup, they get supported by Iran, and the whole cycle starts again. The Israelis are not putting up with it anymore.
I want to make sure we understand the concept of disproportionately, because very often from allies of Hamas, which we're seeing in Congress and college campuses across America, that means they're responding with force. I think you're arguing responding with not enough force being disproportionate.
No, I'm arguing the Israelis will always respond disproportionately. It's their only deterrence. And at this point now, when they say they're going to destroy Hamas, that's what's going to happen. They're not stopping until that happens. Whether that means that the entire northern section of Gaza is completely flattened and it's uninhabitable, well, then that's what it means. There's going to be no pressure on them that's going to allow Hamas to negotiate, to come back. They're done. That's why this is going to take a long time. So I think the world in the Middle East, it keeps thinking that Israel is kind of kidding, or they will just, basically get pressure from the United States and the rest of the world. They're not taking any pressure anymore. This, again, they're at war. If you listen to their defense minister, he said it's a time for peace and it's a time for war. They're at war right now.
If that's the case, why you're agreeing with the ground delay?
Yeah,
those two things don't seem to jive for me. If this was Israel serious, wouldn't they go when they think the moment is to go?
Well, yeah. Well, that's why. And I think they don't think the ground invasion works right now because they haven't softened the targets enough. They haven't. I mean, if you're taking an air campaign for 45 days and you're that relentless attacks that's going on there, by the time the ground forces come, you're not going to be ready to fight anybody. You've been cut off of food. You've been cut off of water. I think this ground war starts potentially subterranean. They're going after those tunnels. They'll be flooded with seawater. There's going to be so many very creative things that they're going to do when it comes to taking down this enemy. So sure, no, I think the pause makes sense, and they go in their level. If Hamas wants Israel to start the ground war, so they could film and see great destruction and things that are happening, Israel's going to just take their time, protect their own force at the same time, but again, knowing full well that the hostages will be at greater risk.